All right, welcome to WeatherGod's Wisdom. We talk about the tropics, and keep in mind that this is all opinionated, and I am not a meteorologist. And for any final decisions that you make, please refer to the National Weather Service office that pertains to your area and the National Hurricane Center when discussing Tropical Storm Humberto and these tropical waves out here that have not yet formed. And we're going to talk about this for a little bit. But first, we have Tropical Storm Humberto, which is in the northwestern Bahamas right now. If you look at the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, you can see it does not have it very close to the United States. And in fact, right now it includes Bermuda as the only significant landmass while this storm is strong. We have the tropical storm warnings for the northwestern Bahamas, which have to unfortunately deal with yet another system immediately after Hurricane Dorian. But clarity on this system's track has, as expected, improved, and we are going to look at that now. So let's go back to lower dynamics here. So the GFS has finally kind of come in line with the European model, not as much as we need it to be, but it still presents a solution that takes it directly into near Florida and has it actually quickly intensifying once it gets to the upper latitudes, and we will dive into that in a minute. But as you can see, the GFS has a tropical storm here in the northwestern Bahamas, very close, if not on top of Great Abaco. And this is not something that you want to see immediately after Hurricane Dorian. And if you look at the area average sounding here, you have very, very minimal shear and very decent relative humidity, not the best relative humidity. There is some dry air in this mid-level layer that is not 100%. You can see that the wind barbs are generally out of the south and east, which are going to carry the system uncomfortably close to Florida, in this run at least. The European model, if we get to it, does not have Humberto as close to the Florida coast as the GFS. You can see GFS has it here. Actually, if you advance a little further, it has it much closer than the European model does in about 48 hours. And so this is likely due to the fact that the GFS has still kind of misread how fast the system is going. That's the Gulf of Mexico. This is the Northwest Atlantic. And you can see that the system is still locked up in the just north of the northeastern Bahamas or northwestern Bahamas. And this is because very little is really trying to steer the storm right now. You have a kind of weak upper level ridge right in here, and then a upper level low that's kind of been eroding it on the eastern side, and you have a trough that has dived down and has really eroded this ridge, and it is not moving it that much, and so this will kind of creep westward the next couple of days before we have another trough kind of erode the ridge that is developing here, which will move it ultimately, kind of take it out to sea. It ultimately depends on how far north this gets. And again, the further north it gets, the better the system becomes. And the fact that it has moved slower allows it, if you look at the GFS, 250 millibar wind, you can see it is not going to be sheared as much. And you have the upper level low is down in here, and not Dorian, Humberto is right in here. And so you can see there's not a lot of shear, maybe some shear on its eastern side due to this anticyclone that's trying to develop. And there's kind of two little anticyclonic flows in here. You have one right here that's pushing the outflow to the north, which you can see if you go back to the water vapor loop. of Humberto right now. You can see these feathery clouds that are pushing out to the north and north, even now northwest, but still not a lot on the southern side. And that will get better as time goes along, as this upper level low that's currently centered over the central Gulf kind of relaxes, and the shear from this ridge too will also move in tandem with the system, kind of gradually moving to the west-northwest. And as the system gains latitude, and you see this especially on the GFS model, it really just comes together and this run of the GFS is very close to the Florida coast. This is very uncomfortably close, and it intensifies pretty quickly. If you look at the mean sea level pressure, it actually has it as a hurricane right here, and that's uncomfortably close. You don't want to see this right next to the southeast coast, similar to Dorian, where you have the system that is very close. And you can actually see here too, in the low-res European model, also has it as a hurricane, or very close to hurricane status, just offshore. And this gets picked up by, if you look at the 500 millibar height anomaly, you can see that there's a weakness in between these two ridges. You've got a ridge to the southeast trying to move it to the north and east, and you have a ridge to the northwest that is trying to move it south and west. But this trough in the past few runs has kind of been a little bit stronger, and so the European model has trended a little faster with this system, and thanks to it deepening and getting stronger, you will see this be carried out to sea relatively quickly, and that's why the European model takes this out in, very fast. What the? Okay. And so you have, it gets taken out pretty fast, and the GFS has a similar solution where it just kind of gets taken out to sea and kind of moves harmlessly, because you see Bermuda is right in here, and the East Coast right here, and kind of just moves harmlessly out to sea, maybe affecting the Maritimes. But this is good. The problem is that we have several waves in here. If you look back at the National Hurricane Center, you can see there are three areas of interest here. And this is a long-term threat, so we're not going to talk about this much. But if you go back to the European model and turn to the Western Atlantic and go to the 850 millibar vorticity, you can see that these waves kind of individually pass in to the Eastern Caribbean, and they track very close to the United States. And intensity has not been the Euro's forte right now, but general synoptics that have been dictating these systems, the Euro has caught on to faster than the GFS. And what we're seeing here is the European model has favored a stronger 500 millibar ridge, and I'll show you. This is a very strong ridge, and the only problem with the Euro that the GFS has been picking up, if you go to the North Atlantic, has been that the GFS has done tropical cyclone genesis a little better. If we're going to go to 850 millibar, and see that the genesis is different from the European model. And so the European model has a wave that originates at the center of the monsoon trough, not at the edge of the monsoon trough, which typically, if it is at the center of the monsoon trough, it is harder for the system to spin up, and there's not as much of an envelope for the system to really get going. But if you kind of have it on the edge of the monsoon trough, it really starts to develop a little faster. And so the GFS has much stronger systems, but its synoptics are out of touch. And so you have a much weaker 500 millibar ridge than the European model does at this time. You go back a little bit. and you see this ridge is much stronger at this time, and this is actually 4 days out. If we go to 144 hours, you can see this ridge is still much weaker, and that's likely due to how close the GFS puts this ridge, or puts Humberto to the ridge. The Humberto will have significant implications regarding these systems now. This is not what I thought was going to happen yesterday, but it seems that conditions favor a stronger system. But typically what happens is if a cyclone moves to the north of a ridge, it allows this ridge to kind of build back in a little faster. And that's what the Euro seems to be wanting to pick up, which is why this ridge is so much stronger here. And this does not bode well. If the GFS is right in the genesis of these cyclones, and you see Euro at 168, GFS at 168, you see this ridge is not as strong. And there's the 594 millibars is much further south on the European model. This is at 25 north, and on the GFS this is out 30 north. This is very different, and the problem is that we're 168 hours out. So this changes a lot, and the GFS tends to have a more poleward bias. So ridges on the GFS tend to be weaker, but the GFS does a good job of cyclogenesis, and so this is worrying to have a hurricane right here, and with a weaker ridge. But the European model has a much stronger ridge, this is very disturbing. So the islands need to be watching the three amigos right here, because this could be a pretty intense hurricane if the GFS does verify, and we do have a hurricane uncomfortably close. This is only, if I shift click, only 200 miles from the islands, and that's not a lot. Another thing I wanted to talk about, if we get to the right water vapor loop, is this kind of storm complex in here in this upper level low. Levi Cowan, all credits, by the way, go to Levi Cowan for all the satellite and model data. Kind of mentioned that this convection that is here on this upper level low could actually bring this upper level low down to the surface, and Texas could be dealing with a possible cyclone. Levi only gave this about a 15% chance of developing, but pretty much what happens, and this happened with Hurricane Joaquin back in 2015, is you had a upper level low that continued to fire convection that was very deep. If you look at the infrared imagery on this convection right here, this is extremely deep convection. This is approaching negative 80 cloud tops in some areas. This is very cold and deep convection. And as this convection continues to get closer to the center of this upper level low, you could have a surface circulation appear, and it could kind of move gradually to the west and spiral towards Texas. And this is a possibility at this point. This is not something that is likely to happen, but I'm kind of watching this warily, and I don't think Texas should be too worried, but if development does occur, they should be taking proper preparations, because we know Texas and hurricanes. They're always bigger in Texas. So yeah, just don't let your guard down if you're on the Texas Gulf Coast, because this could develop, and we could have some problems on the Texas Gulf Coast. And this is in the 5-day outlook. And no, National Weather Service is hinting at this right now. This is all kind of just thought. And if it does happen, I don't think that it should be a very strong tropical system. I don't think it would have enough time to really strengthen. This is kind of moving slowly, though. So it depends on when this happens, if it happens. If it happens like out here, obviously it's something to worry about, because that's about a 2-day trip between 26 north and 92 west. and the Texas Gulf Coast. And we could be talking anywhere on the Texas Gulf Coast. So with that, I'm going to end the video and get some sleep. This week was terrible. But as always, stay safe. All credit goes to tropicaltidbits.com and Levi Cowan. Love that guy. And just, stay safe, and thanks for watching.